Howdy once again, this is tubalcain, your YouTube shop teacher. Welcome back to the shop. And in recent videos you saw me rebuild this Lisle drill grinder. And in an upcoming video I intend to show how to use it, and that'll probably be a several part video. But before I get into that, I think it is totally necessary to spend some time talking about the geometry of drill bits and the tip of a drill bit, which is where the action is. And if you do not understand the geometry of a drill bit and all of the angles, it'll be very troubling for you to attempt to sharpen drill bits. So this video will be devoted to drill bit geometry. First, let me talk about some of the resources that are available that might help you understand geometry of a drill bit and that you can study. Now, it was very difficult when I was teaching to hold a drill bit up in front of a class of 24 kids and talk about it and have them be able to see the tip. Matter of fact, it was impossible. So I had developed at that time, when I had my small business called Peterson Products, a drill bit teaching aid, and that's about the size of a 2-pound Hills Brothers coffee can, and I sold many of those when I had my business. Long defunct now. That is me with my face covered to protect the innocent, standing before a class showing how to use it. And you can see that was large enough that it would be pretty useful if I had one right now, but as far as I know, none of these exist. Years ago, all of the major companies, and in this case it's Cleveland Twist Drill, had free giveaways. And here's the Cleveland trademark. This is a 50-page pamphlet on drill bits, how to sharpen them, how to use them, and just a great deal of information. I had to buy this off of eBay. I think it was $5. It's in pretty good condition. It's probably from 1959. So something like that. It's just great. In addition, here's one put out by the Morse Twist Drill Company, the Practical Machinist Guide, and it has about 4 or 5 pages also on twist drill terms and the grinding of bits, and also pictures showing the tips of the drill bit. This is one of my favorites, also put out by Cleveland, and is printed on a heavy stock with a spiral binding so it opens and stays open, and there's a lot of information about drilling speeds. And near the end here, there's a nice section also on drill bit geometry, first aid for drill bits, how to repair them, recondition them, and also on the back, pictures of the tips. I love this engineer's black book, recently given to me by Bruce Witham, and there's also a nice section in this book on drill bit grinding, and it included, which I have out on my optical comparator, this nice metal gauge here for sharpening. You'll see that later on, but it was tucked here in this little pouch in the back. So this is a great book. Get yourself one of these. The instruction sheet that came with a Lisle grinder, model 91000, has about 6 pages on how to use the grinder. We'll talk about that in the next chapter, but on the back of it here also is the fundamentals of drill sharpening. There were scores of machine shop books. This one is the old Shop Theory, Henry Ford, and I'm showing this guy. I think it's out of print, and maybe the copyright is no longer in effect, but and I will be using this here in a few minutes again, but there are several pages here also on drills and drill grinding. This is a particularly nice book. I think there's a lot of these probably available on the internet. So there's about 6 pages on drill bits. In addition, you will be needing a drill grinding gauge, so get yourself either a Starrett like this, and this is adjustable up and down the rule. This is actually an attachment for one of their 6-inch rules. Here's another brand, but similarly made, and these are 59 degrees. But you can also find probably, I don't know if they give these away anymore, but here's again a Cleveland advertising gauge. They could be put in your pocket for the tips and the main angle. Here's one by Butterfield that is a double ender. So try to find one of those. You probably can get one at the hardware store, or even make your own, or make it out of cardboard, and it still would be accurate enough for the general purposes. First, let's talk about the parts and the terminology used with drill bits. All drill bits have a point, which is the very end here where the cutting takes place, the body, and a shank. They may have tapered shanks, or they may have straight shanks, and there are even other shanks available. Years ago they used a square shank. On the end of the taper there is a tang. That is what does the driving on larger bits, but most likely here we're going to be dealing with just taper bits, taper shank bits, and straight shank, whether they're stepped down like this, sometimes called silver and Deming, or the regular smaller bits that you're going to use in the shop. All drill bits have what we call flutes, and that's the spiral grooves right here, and most commonly is the 2-flute, which is really what we're concerned with today, but they also make a 3-flute and a 4-flute. Those are generally called core drills. They are used to enlarge holes that have been either pre-drilled or pre-cast. The purpose of the flutes is to help form the geometry here of the tip, as well as to allow coolant and oil to get down to the tip where the cutting is taking place, and to allow the chips to escape and spiral up and out of the hole. So that's the purpose of the flutes. Looking at the side now, the area here between this point and this point is called the land. This is the margin. Only the margin is touching the side of the hole. This is body clearance. If the entire side here, the entire land touched the side of the hole, there'd be a lot of friction. So this reduces friction and heat by having the body clearance. The margin here is not a cutting edge. It is on a reamer, or this area is the cutting edge on a reamer, but it does not cut. It only supports the drill in the hole. The main support of a drill bit is called the web. It's like the spine of the drill bit. It gives it strength. It is thicker near the bottom than it is near the top, but of course you certainly can't tell that by just looking at a drill bit, but I'm going to show you proof of that right now. Looking at the end on any drill bit, this is called the web right here. Now I took the liberty of taking a 1/2 inch drill bit and cutting it in half to prove the point, or make a point here. And it looked like that originally, but looking at it right here, you can see that the web is approximately 2 millimeters. And then on the lower part that I cut off, and then I resharpened it, the web is 3.5 millimeters. Therefore, it's really too thick right here to do any drilling unless you thin that web or pre-drill the hole with a pilot that is at least the diameter of the thickness of the web. I thought you'd find that interesting. Probably 90% of all the drill bits you come in contact will be ground at 59 degrees, or a total included angle of 118 degrees. Certainly there are many other drill angles that can be used, but for the purposes of our talk here, it'll be confined to the 59 degree, and that's what you're going to find in all the box stores, and they're called jobber's bits, that are just the traditional length with the traditional point of 59 degrees included angle, and again, that's where you need your drill gauge to check that angle. This is the lip of the drill bit. Now that's the actual cutting edge, and there are 2 of those on a 2-flute drill bit. And we have to have a relief or a clearance here of 12 degrees approximately, and that's going to vary with the diameter of the drill. Larger drills need possibly less than the 12 degrees, and smaller drills will need 12, maybe even up to 15 degrees, so that only the cutting edge is touching the work. This is relief back here. Now if you have too much, you're going to end up with probably chipping here of the cutting lip in a short life. Too little and you're going to have rubbing. And you don't want this to touch. This is called the heel back here. So this is the lip, this is the heel. And here's a good picture out of the Ford book showing the 12-degree clearance. As I told you, your lip relief, your clearance, is going to vary depending on the diameter of the drill bit. And this chart, according to Cleveland, is approximately what you should use for your lip relief. And we're not going to be concerned with those small drill bits, because I'm just going to tell you, throw away dull bits that are under 1/8 inch. Don't even consider them. But in the 1/4 inch range, they're calling for 16 degrees, which seems a little excessive to me, 11 for the half, and then we get into bigger bits like 1 inch and 2 inch. There are 8 degrees and 7 degrees, and then even only 6 degrees for the 3 inch. Before we go any farther, I'd like to point out that drill bit points are sharpened at many different angles and different clearances depending on the materials to be drilled. It might be plastic or titanium or just about anything you can think of, and that for efficiency in industry, these points might be ground to whatever you see here or whatever specified. We do not typically do that in the home shop. We're sticking with what I told you, 118 degrees. These pictures from the Lisle instructions, notice that they're talking here about lip clearance again. Incorrect, correct, and incorrect. Here we actually have negative clearance. That's correct. And this is excessive. Note also in the above picture here, this is the top view of the drill bits, that when you get this angle in the wrong amount, it's going to change the angle of the chisel point. And you will not get the 135 or anywhere near it unless you have the correct lip relief of usually 8, 10, 12 degrees. Here's an example of a drill bit with too much clearance, and you can see that the cutting lip broke off. Now let me show you one with too little. Here's an example of a poorly ground from the factory drill bit. It's an import. Can you see that there's virtually no clearance, or maybe even negative clearance right here? Now I'll set it up with the height gauge to show you that, but this drill bit would not cut, it would rub. From this view, using a height gauge, you can see that pretty much this is the exact same height right at the lip, that's the cutting edge, and the heel. So that bit needs to be reground, and it's the same way on the other side. Very unfortunate that something would be shipped out from a factory in that condition. This is called the chisel point. The chisel point on a drill actually does not do any cutting. It displaces the metal. So if the chisel point there at the web is too thick like that, you're going to have trouble drilling unless you have a pilot hole. And there is to be an angle there. That is the angle between the lip here and the web, or the chisel point, should be around 135 degrees, but that certainly can vary. You can check it with a protractor. Right there, and you can see it's not quite 135, but yet it's okay. Doesn't have to be exactly 135, but it needs to be in that ballpark. Alright, let's review those 3 angles that are most critical now. First of all, the angle of the point should be 59 degrees. Check that with a gauge. This is a brand new bit. Again, it can vary just a little bit as long as both lips are the same. And then looking at it from this direction, we want approximately 12-degree relief here between the lip and the heel. that also can vary just a little bit. And finally, we're looking here at the chisel point, and it ought to be about 135 degrees. You're going to see that that varies greatly even on commercially ground drill bits, but it's approximately 135. It's not even right on here, but there I'm using a Lufkin protractor set at 135. Next, let me say that the chisel point needs to be in the very center of the drill bit. That is, this lip must be the same length as this lip. In other words, right here, this lip needs to be the same as this lip. And if it is, the chisel point will be in the center. Now, if it isn't in the center, your drill bit is going to drill oversize. In fact, some old-timers would grind it with uneven lips so that the hole would drill oversize for whatever purpose they had. I don't know why they just didn't use another drill bit, but that's what I've been told anyway. So be very careful of that as you sharpen your drill bits. If the drill bit is sharp and both lips are ground equally, you should get 2 chips coming out of the hole, and the chip should be of equal size and thickness. How do you know when a drill bit needs to be sharpened? Sometimes it will be obvious, that is, the bit just will not drill, or it will smoke, or it'll heat up, or something like that. You know that you need to sharpen it. But you can also, and you really should, examine it a bit each time you use it and see if the point is suitable to use, or do you need to touch it up. And you know, this can be done by hand, but in the next video I'm going to show you how to do it with the Lisle drill grinder. In one of my older videos I do show how to do it by hand. I'll give you the link or the name of that video. Now here is a drill bit that has way too much lip clearance and should be reground. That will dull rapidly because the edge, the lip, is too delicate. I buy a lot of used drill bits at garage sales and auctions, and often they've been ground by people that don't know what they're doing, but here's one that you can see that has absolutely no relief, or even possibly a little negative relief, so that bit needs to be sharpened before use. Here's a bit that's been sharpened by somebody that didn't know what they were doing, and you can see it's chipped already there, but notice that it's not ground smoothly. It has different facets on it, so every time it was put back on the grinding wheel, this would have been done freehand, it was ground at a slightly different angle. So this is just terrible. A drill bit has wear on it every time it's used. Now, in the home shop, you're not going to see that kind of wear, but certainly in industry, they wear drill bits out, and it'll typically be near the end, near the point, and the margin will literally wear down to where it is gone, and it's just flush all the way across here. And if that is the case, really a portion of the drill has to be removed so that you have a good land. So you might have to remove a ½ inch or even an inch. And then you probably will have to thin the web. Again, I'm not going to talk about thinning webs, but as the web gets thicker and thicker. So examine the land to see if there is damage to it or wear. Again, I do not have an example to show you, but if a drill bit has been overheated, you're going to see that it's blue, it's very dull, and often, again, the margin just burnt off. You will have to remove a portion of it. Or in the smaller drill bit size, I just recommend throw it away, discard it, because the drill bits aren't that expensive. But in the larger sizes, you may have to salvage it and amputate a portion of it. But if you do that, be very careful you don't overheat it and take the temper out and ruin it in your attempt to recondition it. I guess my point is that sometimes drill bits wear out rather than just dull, and Cleveland in the booklet here has attempted to show you that. I'm not sure how well it shows up here, but they're talking about how the land wears down, and that's what I just showed you. and that it's necessary to remove the worn section. As mentioned earlier, as a drill bit gets shorter and ground down, the web gets thicker and has to be thinned. So here's an example of a couple that have been thinned, and I will not cover that even in the following video because that's almost a subject in itself, but you can see how that's been ground, probably freehand, but there is machinery that will do it to reduce the thickness of the web on the chisel point. In summary now, I've shown you the different angles that we need to be familiar with before we start grinding drill bits, and some of the defects that you're going to see in used drill bits, and how to identify dull drill bits. And that concludes this video, so be sure and watch the follow-up videos where I show you how to use the Lisle 91000 grinder, and that will probably also be 2 parts as I show you how to set up the machine and then how to grind your drill bits and renew their tips. So hope you enjoyed the video. You might have to watch it more than once. Thank you for watching. This is tubalcain saying so long for now.